What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, we're going to be going over my tips and tricks for the Demogorgon in Dead by Daylight. Now, we do these tips and tricks for every single killer in Dead by Daylight. So if you guys are into that, make sure you guys are subscribed. Hit that bell icon so you guys know when we do future ones. I'm very, very excited for this killer. I think the Demogorgon is super, super cool. And it is kind of, I'd say, straightforward-ish in terms of how to use him. So we're going to go over, how to generally use his attacks, kind of the special things that are unique to him. We'll go over his perks as well. So we're going to be talking all things about the Demogorgon. Now, I think one of the first things you should know about the Demogorgon is how tall this creature, I'm going to call him a he for the purposes of the video, just easier, how tall he truly is. And he is very tall. He's also very, very slow. He's one of the slowest killers in Dead by Daylight. Now, I feel like his reach kind of makes up for that. However, I'm not like the most expert into Dead by Daylight out there in the world. I don't know if the reach makes up for the slowness in general, but I would say it kind of balances itself out. But just so you guys are aware, and I've seen this often in Dead by Daylight, a lot of people are very, very good at doing the looping, right? Every map has a couple of unique spots where you can loop a killer over and over and really buy a lot of time for your other friends to do the generators, right? Or do whatever, destroy a totem. And the Demogorgon is a prime candidate to have that happen to him. So you really have to use him smartly. You have to be able to do those kind of cheap, when they're half over a vaulting thing where you hit them. You have to be good at that. Now, one of the things that they try to do with the Demogorgon to offset that is his lunge ability. Now, I like it. It's a cool thing. You have to use it at the right opportunities, and there's more than one way to use it. I'd say one of the more clever ways, which I've seen a lot of people do, is to bridge gaps, okay, to get somewhere faster. Now, the portals are kind of what is there for to do that, right? You want to make sure you're establishing your network, but in terms of the lunge, I'm saying literally like within eye distance of bridging a gap. If you're going to bridge a gap with portals, you're probably going to, set it up strategically, which we'll talk about where to do that in a second. But with lunging, if the survivor is super far away, but you can kind of see them, they're still within within your viewing distance, you can use this ability and you can definitely bridge the gap. Now, in terms of using it to actually hit a survivor, it's a lot harder, I would say, and it depends. It depends fully on the map and where you are in the map. You're not necessarily, I think, going to be able to use this ability in an open area, in any map, I'd say, because really all it takes from the survivor is to sidestep you. If they sidestep you, you immediately miss, and you're kind of out of the game for a while. It's that whole, where you're kind of dazed and you can't move for a little bit. It's that kind of thing. So if you miss with that, you're going to give the survivor a chance to get a little bit away from you, right? Again, maybe not every survivor will do that. A lot of survivors may just be scared. They may not even think to just move slightly to the left or right, and they may get hit. That's totally possible. But more often, if you're playing against really good survivors, they're probably going to sidestep you. So you need to do this, again, in confined spaces where you'll be able to get them. This is a good spot to, again, bridge the gap if they're going to jump over something. Like I said, if they're going to vault over a window or a barricade or whatever, if they do that, you can use this lunge and it'll count as that hit. You'll be able to get them. So that's the best way. I've even seen it being done in people that do that looping thing, but a loop where they are in an open area, but they still choose to go in straight lines because that's kind of like their brain telling them, I need to follow this loop, step for step. You can do it there too. As long as the survivors are kind of programmed to go into a straight line, this is a fantastic kind of ability that you can use to take them out. Now, the portals, when they first announced the portals, I was thinking, how is this different from the Hag? Like, what are they going to do to make this different? And in a lot of ways, it is very, very similar, and you could argue one is better than the other. But, they're all slightly unique. But the general idea is to use the portals the same as you would for any of those killers that you do those kind of things with. So, again, like the Hag or even the Trapper, kind of setting traps around. Anything that you have to kind of think, well, where would I want to put this? Or where would the survivors go? That's mainly the Trapper. But that's what you want to think when you're doing this. So the best thing to do is to establish a network, which a lot of people throw around that word, establish your network. Kind of have it, if you want to put it near a survivor, one once you hook them, you can do that. You can't actually put it directly in front of them. You have to actually take some steps away. It's a thing that, they added that so that you can't kind of game the system. So you do have to take a couple steps away from the hook in order to do that. But you generally do want to put this around generators. A lot of people will still run the perks where they can see two people on one generator or a light up or whatever. You have to use it in conjunction with your other perks, that's for sure. So you want to do what makes most sense for you. If you're into protecting those hooks or you want to get to the hooks fast, if you're not camping, you're going out after you hook the person, then it's probably wise to have a portal there so you can fast travel there. But that's generally what you want to do. It does depend again on your other perks. If you have perks that really help you identify generators in general, or you have like regression or something that's gonna like make the generators go off, then you're gonna want a fast way to get to them, and that's where you're gonna want to put the portal. So it really depends on your other perks, to be honest with you, but that's generally the way to do it. Now, the survivors can't actually take out the portals until you use them once, at least once, so you don't have to worry about putting them down and immediately being destroyed. That is one of the differences between it. Okay, now let's go over all three of the perks that the Demogorgon has, and let's talk about, kind of their strengths, weaknesses, how to use them in general. The first one is Surge, which is if you put a survivor in a dying state with a basic attack, all generators within 24 meters instantly explode and regress. So, it's good. I think a lot of people were very, very excited about this when it first was announced because it sounds really, really cool. At the same time, it definitely has, the times that it works and the times that it doesn't. And I'm not necessarily sure they're going to even out. Maybe some matches you do get this that happen quite often. Maybe some you don't. It really, I think it's going to matter in the beginning because it's when the most generators are around, right? When there's only a couple left, or just in general for any of these, if you are just attacking a survivor far away from a generator, or they lead you far away from generators, it's not going to do much. Sometimes survivors will do that. They'll lead you as far away as possible so that a generator can be completed. Now, maybe they'll lead you towards another generator that they don't even know, and that one will be affected by this. So it does have its purposes. Like, it's good in its own way. It's not the most powerful perk in the world for sure, but it is pretty darn solid. The next one is Cruel Limits, which is each time a generator is repaired, all windows and vault locations within 24 meters from the completed generator are blocked for all survivors for the next however many seconds, 20, 25, 30, depending on the tier of the perk. This one's pretty darn good as well, and this is, I would say, again, kind of caution, Dead by Daylight is constantly changing, and I remember when I first started playing it, when generators would go off, the killer would go to that generator. He would immediately go to that generator, and I think there's still some benefit to doing that because there will still be a survivor from time to time that'll stick around, or a couple of survivors that'll stick around, mainly because they know now. It's kind of like balanced. It's kind of like you're using your mind to fool people. It's kind of because they know that the killer knows that they're not going to be there, right? So they stay so that the killer doesn't know to look there. So you're really using kind of like four-dimensional chess here, right? So what I'm trying to say with this perk is it's really good if you're into, or if you're just generally close by a generator. A lot of times, sometimes you'll just be walking, and all of a sudden, bam, a generator will go off, and it's right next to you, and you'll be able to catch a couple survivors leaving it. Then it's very, very powerful, right? Because they can't do any of the jumps, that you could probably get them pretty darn easily. At the same time, a lot of survivors, or the killer just in general, doesn't necessarily go to when the generator goes off. And that happens as well with hooked survivors, which I've noticed, again, since when I first started playing, you really couldn't do those quick heals, which I see a lot of people do, take them immediately off the hook and then heal them right there on the spot. A lot of times the killer would come back and you would be completely, left in the open. But nowadays, the killer kind of knows, like, well, they may not be there. They're probably far away, so I have to think, well, where would they go? So it's kind of that situation. So it kind of just depends on the killer, on the survivor. If you're the kind of person that goes to the generator once it's done, then this perk would probably be pretty good. But if you're one that, isn't going to do that, if you're one that the generator goes off and you're like, oh, well, it's a lost cause, it's already done, I'm going to go somewhere else where I think they're probably going to go to, then this perk doesn't really do you any good, and probably you should just pass on it. So really, again, depends on your playstyle, really also depends on the survivor's playstyle as well. And the last one is Mindbreaker. While repairing generators with less than 50% repair progression, survivors are afflicted by the exhausted status effect, and this could last for however long. This is decent. I've honestly never been that into the whole, really any of these, the whole exhausted kind of stuff. And there's a couple of these effects that can take place on survivors in general that different killers have had throughout time that Dead by Daylight has added them. I've never been the biggest fan of this kind of like ability. Even Terror Radius, I understand like the point of Terror Radius, like, you know, and you could sneak up on people with it, but I've never been one that like truly relies on it to do it. This one is decent though. Okay, it's decent enough if you're into that, if you're into kind of catching them off guard, if you're ready for a chase. And I think this one is to kind of help you with the fact that you are a bit slower, that just as a general killer, you do not have the speed that some others do. So they're kind of like, okay, well, we'll make, you know, one of the perks make the survivors a little bit slower as well. So it kind of balances things out. Overall, I'll be honest, the killer himself, the Demogorgon, is super awesome in terms of looks, visuals, how he acts. Absolutely amazing, maybe the best killer ever. And I said that for Ghostface, but I would probably say it here again. In terms of the perks and even his abilities, I'd say they're pretty weak. Honestly, I would say that kind of the uniqueness of him, what they did to make him unique from everybody else, and you know, you have to give everybody something. The portal thing, it's like, well, that's kind of copying the Hag. I get that it's very much different, but the originality isn't there. And then these perks, I'd say Surge is probably the best one. Surge is a really good one. And Cruel Limits, if again you're using it the right way, or you just use it in general, then it's going to be pretty decent. I'd say the perks are average. I wouldn't say they're amazing. I definitely would say that other killers have come with much better perks. It also seems like survivors, which in this case they do, the survivors come with way, way better perks really every single time that really help the survivors out, I believe, every single time. The killers, I feel like, always kind of get the weaker of the two perks. But there's my tips and tricks with the Demogorgon. There's kind of my, you know, walkthrough of the character. Very, very cool. You know, you just have to know how to use him in general. So guys, let me know in the comments below, what do you think about him? How do you use him? Is there any tips and tricks you would give to other people? Let me know. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit that bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up. And again, we do these tips and tricks for every killer in Dead by Daylight. We also live stream everyone. Next week we'll be live streaming it, but we'll be back for more Dead by Daylight tips and tricks for the future killers that they do. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all on the next video.